Hi there, it's John Kovaleski, cartoonist for Daddy Daze. Here we are swooping in onto my drawing table. Let's talk today about naming the characters. Let's start off with Angus, who is the baby in the strip, based kind of on my son, who is no longer a baby. I didn't want to name the characters after the real life counterparts, so when I was thinking of his name, one of the first names I thought of was Steve. I always thought it was funny to name things Steve. I've been using this joke for 20 years, at least, as sort of a running gag, whether it be someone saying, oh, I'm getting a puppy. What should I call it? Why not Steve? I've named cars Steve. Anyway. So I had that in my head, and I tried a couple of strips with that, and it was too normal, for lack of a better term, a name. And I've had babies that I've used in a couple of different strips that I've always named odd names that don't seem like they fit for babies, like Fred or Carl with a K. So Angus came from my son, like most 7-year-olds. His favorite band at that time was AC/DC, so I named him after Angus Young, the lead guitarist. He had crazy guitar solos, lots of moving around, at times running around the stage on his side in a circle like Curly from the Three Stooges. Also famous for wearing an English schoolboy outfit. I called up my former spouse to talk to her and get her, tell her about the Angus name, because I thought it was funny. And she came up with an idea of having each of us name our characters after someone in our chosen field, since I was naming Angus after our son's favorite band. I had also called her to come up with some names. I was just like, come up with a load of names. I'll pick one of them. You can name yourself. So she actually came up with a load of names, and I ended up going with Amy. Sounded like a good mom name. And that's actually named after Amy Beach, who was a turn of the last century composer and pianist. For my character, Paul, actually my former spouse had mentioned to me sort of the, running joke amongst cartoonist community that we have, a large ratio of Morts that are cartoonists. Mort Walker, Mort Drucker, Mort Gerberg, and I had even used it as a baby's name in a comic strip that went nowhere because I thought it was funny. And in the end, I wanted both parents to have kind of run-of-the-mill names, and then have Angus have the more unique name, which is also the other reason why I didn't use Steve for Angus, because Steve just sounds like a regular name. And I was worried that someone might think, oh, Steve's a regular name, he must be talking about the dad. All the many things you think about that no one else ever would. So I named myself after Paul Coker Jr., one of my cartooning heroes. I got to interview him a couple of years ago. He of Mad Magazine, most famously from doing this feature called Horrifying Cliches. So here's a couple. Laboring under an illusion, recalling an old incident, accepting a grim reality, bowing to the inevitable, hitting the nail on the head. Get it? Head like toilet. Anyway, also famously known for working on Rankin Bass animated specials, including, most famously, Frosty the Snowman. So that's where that name came from. Let's go to the secondary characters. I had this character who was a who still is, a friend of Paul's. They meet in a coffee shop and just kind of trade stories. He's a more downtrodden father. He has some innumerable amount of kids. Good Lord. And I just named him after my friend Chuck. One of the things one thinks about sometimes with these kind of things is that you want names that aren't too long because you don't have a lot of room. So Chuck was a good friend name. Going to the teacher at Angus's daycare, Lily, my son had a teacher in preschool who was also named after a flower. So I just thought, okay, Lily would be good for that. Nice and short. Britt, once again, a short one. I named her after my niece, Brittany. It was just like, well, Britt's just kind of catchy and goes right there. Now, I've used her name before in Bonanas, my previously syndicated comic strip. And this is one of those. And Brittany was from the Squirrel Scouts, always introduced herself like that, and would be constantly trying to sell Bo some sort of, instead of cookies, some sort of nefarious product. She was kind of like a teeny con man. And my niece actually looked kind of like this. When she was years and years ago, she's now, nearly 30. But when she was a little girl, she's just small and blonde. And then Angus's friends from daycare, I wanted a couple of kids, and I wanted them to be basically the same as Angus in terms of, not speaking English, at least, not speaking in Baz or whatever. They would all be kind of silent to each other. And one of them was Zoe. That just seemed like a nice little girl's name, nice and short and sweet. Carlos was I named one kid Carlos because at one point my son said to me he wanted his character to be named Carlos. This was after a little joke I made with him. We always talk, my son my son is a drummer and has been forever. Makes the house very loud, but it was a joke. We were talking about Bunny Carlos, the drummer for Cheap Trick. So he had said, "Daddy, I want my character to be called Carlos." And I said, I can't do that because people will probably think it's a Hispanic family. And I don't know anything, I can't write from the point of view of an Hispanic family. And that would not be honest, to do that. So I said, I promise you, I will make one of the friends Carlos. And so I did. So that is that. There's all the characters for you laid out. This is part of the sales kit. And that is that. Thanks for listening, for watching, for reading. Follow me on the Book of Face, the Gram of Instant, and the Tur of Twitter. All of them at Daddy Daze, Daze, just like that, comic.com. Well, sorry, at Daddy Daze Comic. And then you can go to the website, daddydazcomic.com, to see everything every day. Here's a little sketch of something that's coming up. Anyway, thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.